We would like to thank LSR for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast. LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
We're kicking off episode number 13 on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Alongside me is Hall of Fame head coach Frank Monica. Tonight we have some LHSAA Round 2 recaps, Round 3 previews. We have LSU Tulane Saints football. We also have special guest Rusty Rebowe, formerly of the New Orleans Saints and the Nicholls State Colonels. And Coach Monica in the Let's Be Frank segment is going to discuss why have conference championships. So go ahead and bring on Coach Monica. Coach, week 3 of the playoffs coming down the pipe, and it seems like this is the week where we have some of these bigger road matchups where we get down to the nitty-gritty of who's going to be really competing for those state titles, and you kind of see the cream rise to the top. How big do some of these road trips play, especially into Thanksgiving weekend road trips?
Well, number one, you just said it. The Thanksgiving is a real awkward week. Some teams don't handle Thanksgiving week correctly. Do you practice in the morning? Do you practice in the afternoon? How much do you practice at this particular time? How much time off? You want them to enjoy the holidays, but, I used to always tell them, one, Thanksgiving was your goal. You want to be practicing Thanksgiving week. That means that you're at least in the quarterfinals. And number two, the way you handle Thanksgiving, you're going to have a lot of Thanksgivings, but the game is most important thing. You can always have many Thanksgiving to honor your family and stuff like that. Not saying you won't be there, but you don't change your routine because of that, because that 1 week could keep you home rather than get you to the Superdome in 2 weeks from now.
All right, Coach, so let's go ahead and jump into our prep talk segment where we're going to look at some of these LHSAA Round 2 games and Round 3 previews. So, Coach, what did you see in Round 2 that kind of stood out to you?
Well, let's look at, first of all, Chalmette has been a big surprise, and Coach Tucker, I think I'm really pleased for him because he's been around a long time, and I don't know if Chalmette's gotten this far in this particular division, and but they have a tough one against Neville. They got to go all the way to Monroe to play them, and Neville is one of those perennial teams that's always in the playoffs. They've been in the Superdome, got skins in the wall, but I'm really happy for them. Just going down the list right here, Central is going to play West Monroe. Central has a very, very fine football team, and don't be surprised if they sneak themselves in the Superdome because West Monroe is not having a great season, but Central still has a couple of tough ball games in front of them. Destrehan, second week in a row, and I had to do this myself when I was at St. Charles Catholic when we were all together with select. And non-select, we hadn't had that much travel because it divided up to 2 divisions. But here's Destrehan going back up to North Louisiana second week in a row, and they're going to take on an undefeated airline team. So pretty interesting right there. And staying in Division 1 on the select side, here's STM going to play Carr in a real tough environment. Carrs are just unbelievable in terms of their team, but STM's been resilient. Came up with a big win the other day. You got Rummel going to Catholic of Baton Rouge. 5 out of the last 6 years they've met. 5 out of the last 6 years, and Rummel's only defeated them one time, and that was for the state championship. That was held, though, at Tulane Stadium. So, unfortunately, 4 seed playing a 5 seed, and of course, the winner of that has the dubious honor of probably playing Carr STM winner. John Curtis is going to go to Turlings, and John Curtis scored within 10 seconds to win last week. They're going to find Turlings' team, find quarterback. Really, what a good matchup there. Turlings, I don't know if they've seen this particular offense for a while, and other than the Acadiana. And then you have Bird and Alexander. Alexander's just a scoring machine. So, and Bird puts up 50 points last week. So that game might not finish till Tuesday morning. But in Division 3, you don't see a bunch of real big matchups. Cecilia has been a surprise team, but everybody knew it didn't surprise Lutcher. I remember Coach Jenkins telling me he didn't like that draw from the beginning, and Cecilia went down to Lutcher last week, defeated them, but they have to travel to North Dakota again on the road this week. Opelousas wins a big ball game. They're going to take on Plaquemine. And then on the top here, Franklinton and Lakeshore. Very interesting concept. They're both from the same district. Franklinton's already defeated Lakeshore, and Franklinton's the number 1 seed. So that could be we talked about this before in the show about the matchups that have taken place before, and then the rebound team, do they have an advantage or not? St. James is going to take on the Pine team. St. James looks like they're really, really collision course with the Union Parish, who was always tough, and then you have a Sterlington team playing Oak Grove. So that division right there, that's the big show up right there. Let me drop. I went over the D2, Shaw and Kennedy. Now Shaw and Kennedy, that's a very good matchup. Kennedy is really, really a powerful football team. They don't have many players, but the ones they dress out are pretty good. They could give Shaw a scare. Of course, they have to tackle that back, and that back at Shaw Parker is probably one of the best backs that I've seen this year. Madison Prep playing the Struma. They already devoured Struma because that's in the district. It's another district game. And early in the year, Madison Prep, we saw them the other night. Surprised how good they were, especially on offense. They're really, really big offensive linemen. They have a back that can really go. He went over 200 yards. A quarterback can throw it. And they look like they really, really practice a lot. Now, their defense doesn't do a lot, but they're very effective. They run to the ball. E.D. White and Vanderbilt. How can you pass this one up? It's 20 miles apart. They played one another before. It's a close game. And this is a rematch for that one on that division. Let me jump to Division 3 and select Dunham and Lafayette Christian. Lafayette Christian came back with a rematch against Notre Dame last week and defeated Notre Dame this time around. Quarterback was healthy. He's a pretty electric guy, and he could give, of course, both of these guys. Dunham has a quarterback that's 6'4", that's real good, but he's more of a thrower. He'll run when he needs to, but Lafayette Christian is a guy that you just can't catch him. I mean, he drops back to pass. What do? Do you cover the receivers and let him run, or you just have some spy guys on him and let him throw the football? You might be better off letting him throw the football. And Calvary Baptist down there against Episcopal, could be a good matchup. But I think the big matchup here is going to be, can Newman get by Catholic of New Iberia? Newman's never made it to the Superdome. Coach Stewart would love to get there. He's really concerned about Catholic New Iberia, a team that lost their first ball game, but they've been in a row ever since. And I'm going to the D4 in the public school side, or what I'd like to call the non-select side. Haynesville is going to play Welch, but Haynesville's, they've always been there. And down at the bottom, you got South Plaquemine and Mangum. I think that's going to be a real fine football game. You kind of have to pull for a team like Jeanerette playing General Trash. Jeanerette, for years and years, were a doormat football program. All of a sudden, they resurrected themselves, and then here they are playing in the quarterfinals. So you sort of pull for a team like that. Division 4 on the select side, you have a Vermilion Catholic playing a real good St. Edmunds team. VC looks real strong. How about Kentwood and Southern Lab? They've played a number of times in the playoffs. They meet again. And down at the bottom, you have Riverside playing Ascension Catholic. Ascension Catholic, the number 2 seed. Riverside's going to have to travel there, and looking to upset there so they can get to the next round and play the winner of Covenant Christian and Washita Christian. But basically, you got some real good matchups there, and you're going to see some surprises here because when you get to that round, as we said earlier, it all depends how do you handle the Thanksgiving holidays.
Thanks, Coach. And it's always a fun week of football every time you get to the quarterfinal because, as we said, there's kind of a slower build up in this new format and the way it works, and we do see fewer blowouts or bigger wins. But as you go on, this is the week where you really get to see some of the best football that the state has to offer. So should be a great weekend of football as we go ahead and turn our attention to some college football talk. And we'll start out with the LSU Tigers that defeated Vanderbilt 24-17 in their matchup. I said I didn't like the spread at 9, and I was right on in that regard, but it really seemed like LSU kind of had control for the majority of the game. They did struggle in the red zone, which has kind of been one of their typical issues along the season. But overall, it was just kind of a steady game for LSU. It felt like they really had control for the majority of it.
I think, what Coach Kelly talked about all year long, Jason, he mentioned about playing to the defense, offense playing to the defense, playing complementary football, special team. They did that. They actually had some return yards, too. Those hidden yards, I really love to see that. That's the first time I've seen that. I saw them exploit the bubble throws to the perimeter, especially when number 1 gets the football. He's electric, the Anderson kid. And I think they dominated the game, but the score didn't show that. Of course, they took a knee at the end of the ball game. They could have gone up, and I'm sure the odds maker, the people that had LSU in the spread, they wanted them to score right there, but they didn't. That was the classic thing by Coach Kelly, having taken a knee. He just wanted to secure that win and get out of there to make sure that some of the Wolves get off his case just a little bit. Solid win for him. Nussmeier looked really strong. It's amazing. He can make the throw sideways. He makes a lot of throws side on like a pitcher sometimes, and sometimes over the top. I think he's a really good quarterback. I just think that, and they gave him a clean pocket. I think that's the key to any drop back quarterback. That's what he is. And but I think sooner or later he's going to have to pull the ball a little bit just to show people, hey, wait a minute, now I do have some wheels. But I was tickled to see that, and also tickled to hear Coach Kelly talked about how he's going to be very aggressive. Said that yesterday in the transfer portal this year.
Well, Coach, I think that kind of ties into part of the conversation that you've been having throughout the season, which is NIL and their situation. We're going to touch on this before we go to Oklahoma, but, just a week ago, Bryce Underwood, the number one recruit in the country, said he's going to go to Michigan. And there's always kind of discussions and whispers about what NIL is and how, what the dollar amount. But Bryce Underwood very clearly went to Michigan due to the money. Now, I want to say this up front. That's a lot of money from what's being rumored being paid to a college athlete. And I know if I was that age with the ability to secure my future, I can't promise that I wouldn't be above that either. But, Coach, I think this situation is everything that we've that you've kind of exasperated on, which is this is a potential problem that's coming up. And what are your thoughts on that situation where it's rumored around $12 million that's being offered from people who are also in the sports industry?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Once you take that money, you better produce. And because that's the thing that's thrown right back in your face. We gave this guy $10 million. We gave him $12 million. He can't complete, can't throw it out, can't complete a curl. He's soft. He's always hurt. I mean, so you better be able to defend that, and you better have success. To me, that puts a lot of pressure. And same thing for coaches. You hear that all the time. Wait a minute, we paid Kelly $10 million, and this is the product that we get on the field. So I just think the whole thing is out of whack, and it's going to come to a boiling point, and you're going to see. I think that college athletics is going to explode, and I don't see how they're going to keep a cap on it unless somebody, whether the government or somebody comes in, NCAA comes in and said, wait a minute, we got to put a stop to this.
All right, Coach, and next week they do play Oklahoma, or this week they do play Oklahoma, and Oklahoma came off of a huge win against Alabama, surprised a lot of people, 5-5 going into the game. I think this LSU matchup can kind of go one of two ways. You either ride the momentum and ride the wave of that win you just had, or maybe, as you talked about, you only have so many really energetic games in your system, and maybe they kind of blew it on that Alabama game. What are kind of your thoughts going into this matchup?
I think that from LSU standpoint, Oklahoma, again, it's hard to win on the road in the SEC. It was really difficult. I know they get all jacked up and stuff like that, and now not saying you can't. But you're right. I look for LSU to play loose. That's what it looked like against Vanderbilt. It looked like they played loose. They had a 90-yard drive. They had a beautiful drive, 90 yards, and they did it through the air. They didn't mind dropping back and from the 10-yard line and stuff like that. They looked like they played loose, and he got the ball to the playmakers. Little number one is like he's got to touch the ball more. Guys that can run, man. Speed never has an off day. Not only that, he breaks down. Then all of a sudden, here comes the running back, number 18, Williams. I mean, where was he all of a sudden? He looked like a Mack truck, and he looked like Barkley. It looked like last night on television. So I think LSU will play loose. I really think they'll cover the spread and get after it and get that next win. I really feel comfortable about them right now, and I know they've taken a lot of heat. And Oklahoma's not going to be the same team that was last Saturday.
As we turn the page, we go ahead and take a look at Tulane, who's going to have Memphis coming in. And, Coach, we've talked about how Memphis has kind of been a tough game for Tulane, no matter how good or low they are. They're a 9-2 ball club. There's a really solid Memphis team. And when you look at schedules and resumes, I think this is maybe a game that goes under the radar because Memphis isn't, quote unquote, a ranked team, but we know there's a quality opponent, and Tulane has a chance to add another feather to their cap and show that despite what their, quote unquote, strength of schedule is ranked, that they can beat and hang with quality opponents.
I think they have to have Tulane and Coach Summerall said that we have to have laser focus on this ball game and not at Army, which is already in the playoff right there with that conference championship. But the laser focus on Memphis. He's also talked, I think, in unequivocal terms to say how good their receivers are, their running backs are. He said there's players all over the football field. He's very concerned, and I think he's trying to get the players' attention to show them, hey, this team, we beat them last year at their place. They're going to come here trying to spoil our program to get a better bowl game. They're not going to be in the conference championship, but he's very concerned. And then all of a sudden, the little distractions that just kind of come out. Mac Brown's kind of stepped down at North Carolina. All of a sudden, Summerall's name is bouncing around for that. So he doesn't need that kind of distraction. But I know the Tulane alumni, they certainly don't want to hear that at all. But a big game, especially on Thanksgiving night, and be the only college game on national television, so it should be a very interesting matchup for them.
Coach, I'm glad you mentioned that about Mac Brown, of course, longtime college football coach. One of the, maybe you know better, Coach, I think there's only 4 college coaches currently coaching right now that have won national championships, and Mac Brown is one of those guys. You've had experience coaching with him. What are your thoughts as you kind of reflect on his career and what he's done as he's going to hang it up at the end of the season?
Well, I really like to see – I really don't like to see him step out, but I think, you can tell, Mac's not the same guy. He's a little age on him, and especially Jason, we can't say this, but it's kind of like Nick Saban. The game is getting different because of this transfer portal, because of the NIL stuff, because of the antitrust lawsuit thing coming down. And how do you navigate all that stuff? And that's driving. It takes them away from X and O's. Coaches getting the code. I want to run this play. I want to run the power play. I want to run this defense, the 3-free stacker. I want to do this. That's what the coaches want to do. They don't want to spend all this time, in court systems and litigation and stuff like that. And sitting down with agents and say how much money I'm gonna give you, kid, and say, hey, you're the best thing since sliced bread, and I'm gonna give you this much money, and I can see that wears on you. So it gets you away from the game itself, and all of a sudden you become like a CPA more than a head coach. And I did not coach Mac. He tried to get me to go there twice to coach with him, and I turned him down. And probably one of those big missteps in my life. But heck of a recruiter. A great speaker. He's a great speaker, very convincing man, and he's been he's been a lot of big ball games, and he's won a lot of ball games in his life. So good luck to him in the future.
So, Coach, before we jump into our last topic for college, local colleges, when you look at the way this season has played out, a lot of people are kind of comparing it to 2017, which had a 2-loss LSU team hoist the national championship trophy. There were, I think, a number of number 2 ranked teams lose throughout the season. And there's kind of a lot of comparison to that year with a lot of parity, a lot of upsets occurring. Do you think, or in your opinion, what is the reason for this? I would have, when you look at these 2 scenarios, which one do you think it more so is? The transfer portal kind of leveling the playing field where you're not going to be able to stockpile 5-star talent and have 4 or 5-star quarterbacks on the roster? Or is it with the 12-team format, people kind of have a new sense of urgency and are trying to make those late pushes to kind of maybe make their name known to try to get a spot in the playoffs?
Well, that's a great point. That I think the transfer portal has really impacted. It's impacted the sports completely, and we've kind of left the the high school athlete behind. He's not as important as he was at one time. It's now the big money coordinators, the big money head coaches, and it's that college. It's the guy coming out of high school, and the junior college is even worse. Those guys are not even being looked at anymore. They'd rather get a quality guy that's played in the SEC or played in the Pac-12, played in the ACC. I know what he can do. So on that particular level, well, if he's helped them out, he can come and help us out. They're looking for immediate help. And that's what's happening right now. That's what I don't like about it. Where's the high school athlete? Well, am I going to spend time developing this kid, give him a couple of years to develop? If that's the case, let's put them all redshirt. Let's redshirt all of these like they used to be. When I was growing up, all freshmen were redshirted. Nobody played as a freshman. All of a sudden, the freshman rule came. I forget the year that they put that in. Then all of a sudden, they came in. And I like the best teams or mature teams, even some 5-year players, especially in the offensive line. You get an offensive line that got some 4- and 5-year players, and you're going to win. But unfortunately, because of the draft coming out early, because of the transfer portal, you can decimate. Look what happened to LSU right when Bebe Orgeron, and it wasn't fair to him. What had happened to him? Here's a guy like Stingley sitting on the sideline when he could have been playing, and there were guys that just opting out not to play because they wanted a pro contract, something like that. So you got to navigate all that nowadays, and that's hard to do. So when you go to a high school kid, he's going to wait his turn. But the transfer portal kid, he's been recruited twice. So he becomes a high maintenance guy. So he better have success. All right. There's got to be something. You're talking about NIL? Let's put something in place. Okay, you produce, I take away half your money or something like that. If you're going to treat them like a pro, okay, let's make this a business. Okay. If you don't produce, you don't make so many tackles, you don't throw for so many touchdown passes, I'm going to take away some of your NIL money. And now all of a sudden, I'm going to see a better product on the field.
Do you think the 105 scholarship limit will help with the recruitment of high school athletes?
No, it's not going to help out that much. They're going to still have to count the transfer portal guys in there. They're going to have to, and I think that what's going to happen, the walk-on is the one I worry about. The kid that's not really big enough or something like that, and he's a guy. He's a guy that just wants a chance. He just wants to play football. He loves the game. He doesn't care if he gets paid. Like the old days. He's a throwback player. He would do anything just to play the game and give the game back something. And I don't know if that's going to help. We'll find out.
All right, and when we go ahead and take a look at our last college game, we had Southeastern defeat Nicholls State 19-16 on a late field goal. A big win for Southeastern in that local matchup, and it's always a fun game that they play. And it was down there in Thibodaux. Yeah,
exactly. And, Nicholls State with 10 minutes left, they score a touchdown, and all of a sudden they missed the PAT. And so, all of a sudden, Southeastern gets the ball back, lines up for a field goal, and kicks it to win it. It was tough. It was a great win for Coach Selfo. Unfortunately, he did not get a bid to go to the playoffs, the 24 team bracket playoff that they have in that division. And but he came from the ashes. His football team lost the first 3 ball game. He did a phenomenal job at the end, getting his team back and believing in themselves and winning, especially winning against Coach Rebowe's football team. And they didn't have the best year, but I know they were disappointed with that. But they'll be back. They have some quality players on that football team, and they're tough. When you go down to Nicholls State, you're gonna be in for war. These teams will play physically, and they'll be well coached, and you just have to beat them. You have to outplay Nicholls State when you play them, and apparently Southeastern did that.
All right, Coach, and we also have the Rams who are going to be taking on the Saints this upcoming week. Saints kind of feel like they're riding some momentum. What do you think is going to happen in this matchup with the Rams?
Well, the Stafford kid is just an unbelievable thrower. He throws the prettiest ball. When he was in the Manning camp, I made a comment to Coach McMahon when he was with the Saints. He asked me, who do you like in the camp? I said, they had this guy from Georgia that can really throw it. And, it wasn't long after that he became a starter. And he said, you know what? He said, you were right about that. I said, well, I didn't know what he had between his ears, whether he had cauliflower or what. But I know his arm strength was there, and yet he threw a beautiful ball, throws it with a soft touch. But they got a defensive end by the name of Verse from Florida State that's just unbelievable. And so they're going to have to block him, and I think he's going to line up over the Saints' left tackle. So that could be a long night for them if they don't block him. But the Rams, for what we understand now on paper, their offensive line has been decimated with injuries. They're not running the ball as effectively as they should. And, the Saints will have a shot. They're 3-point underdog, but they'll have a shot. And it all depends how they handle this little bye week. And we talked about this before. I hate bye weeks because especially since the Saints had a 2-game winning streak, because all of a sudden you lose that focus and lose that intensity. You got more time at home, more time away from the office because you stretch out your practice schedule then, and you're not as intense, you're not as confined in your game preparation as you were before. And sometimes, and this happened to me in the past, when I had an open week, I'd add too much. And then all of a sudden I'd say, wait a minute, we're not executing. I added too much. I had too much time to think, too many plays to put. I said, this didn't make sense. Why not just keep what I had? So I look for them to do well, and we're hopefully, we're pulling hard for them because as of now, they still have an outside chance. Tampa Bay is going to play Carolina this week, so they still have a chance, believe it or not, to actually win that division.
All right, Coach, and that'll do it for our first segment. When we come back from our break, we're going to have special guest Rusty Rebowe, who again played for Destrehan, Nicholls State, and spent some time in the NFL as well as Canadian Football League. So remember, you're watching on Varsity Sports Now.
We would like to thank the Accardo Law Firm for being a supporter of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
All right, tonight our special guest played linebacker at Destrehan High School, where he won a state title as well as receiving the most valuable defensive player. He went on to play at Nicholls, where he was named on the Gulf South Conference and was a first-team All-American, where he finished with 655 tackles, including 23 in a single game. He went on to play for the Saints and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Our guest tonight is Rusty Rebowe. Rusty, thank you so much for joining us. And you had an incredible career, especially in college, playing linebacker. What would be your advice to give any of these younger players trying to perfect their craft at linebacker?
First of all is thank you for having me on. The first advice that I would give as anything else is every play, when you play it, you got to love it, and you got to go 100% on every single play, because you never know the big camera in the sky is watching, and you just want to do that, and you do that on every play, no matter what the score is and what the outcome is or anything of that way. You got to give 100% and be a team player. I had guys that played with team players that took the guys ahead of me, the blockers, on for me to make the tackle, and I appreciate that 1,000%.
Rusty, I got to tell everybody this story. I got to get it out of the way because before you tell it. So, okay. And I'll tell it the right way. You guys kicked our butts. I remember was it 1973, Russ?
Yes, sir.
1973. You played for a guy by the name of Jesse Roussel. And you guys had a real, and I would use the expression, it was a bastard defense. It was a defense that not many people can block. It involved a ton of blitzing back then, and not many people could pick it up. And we were fortunate enough to actually tie you guys during the season. We had back then, if you recall, and I know you do, the games ended in a tie. They didn't have the playoff, the overtime period like they have now. And then you guys came to Lutcher, though, in a rematch. And in fact, the opening kickoff, we fumbled. You guys got it, and we were never in the game. You guys beat us 21-0. It was cold as the devil that night. But you yourself, Coach, you were a phenomenal player. You made so many players, and not only so when you left Deaf End, you were a phenomenal linebacker. But when you went to Nickel State, we didn't feel so bad because we couldn't block you, and nobody else could, even on the college level. And you had you had this instinct. You weren't the fastest guy in the world, but the people don't know this. But you had tremendous instinct. I mean, you don't see linebackers like you anymore that are so instinctive. You got there. You could read plays, and also you're a great tackler. And you weren't 6'4", but you were hard to block. You can get underneath the pads. You came off for blocks, and people don't understand that but you were just a true football player. And I remember that very well. But the package that y'all had, and you had other good linebackers on the team too. But you stood out, and I remember that game very well. And I mean, in terms of that, we did not have the talent you guys had. We were just fortunate just to tie you. In fact, I would tell you this: I spent countless nights. I was also the offensive line coach back then, and I had to come up with a scheme. I would call it either purple or gold. Purple meant you block everybody blocked to the left. Gold meant everybody blocked to the right, because we had to kick all your gaps, because you guys were sending them, and we didn't know when they were coming. You know, it was a real unique scheme, and I don't know if it was Jesse that brought that in, but expound on that just a little bit for a second.
Well, first of all, Coach, yes, we had a tremendous high school team at that, high school players and stuff, and we ran a 4-4, and we blitzed the linebacker just about every play. And Coach Roussel was the defensive coach for us, and he's the one that came up with the schemes. But we had guys that, some of them were 140 pounds, and they were blitzing, and so we just kind of tried to do a little chaos, and just happens to be that it was very successful for us defensive wise. Offensively, we had a good scheme. We had a good quarterback by Dean Wegersbach.
Yeah, did you have Edgar Charles too?
We had Edgar Charles as a receiver, yes, who played at Tulane. And then and when we just had some guys up front that didn't go nowhere but went work in the refineries after high school, which is unfortunate, but they did a great job and made some blocks for us. And we just played together, and we was a team back then, Coach. We would play a game, and after the game, we'd all go to one spot and hang out together, and just everything we did as a team back then, which I think is missing a lot today.
No, of course. And Dean himself was tougher than a $2 steak. He was a quarterback back then, and y'all had an awesome football team. And I remember when you guys played Hammond, and I think that they had like minus 62 yards of offense or something like that before we played it. So we were scared to death. But anyway, Russ, you had a brief stint with the Saints, but at least you had a shot to see what that's like. Describe to the group and the people listening exactly what it's like for you to go to college and give you a great player in the river parishes for the Nickel State. You set all kinds of records as a captain and made all sorts of tackles. And then from there, you had a chance to play with the Saints. How was that experience for you?
Tremendous. It was one of the highlights of my life, besides me with my family and my wife. But back then it was just when I got the call for them to go, and I had to go to a bunch of mini camps to get to where I had to go to make to training camp, and so it was unbelievable. When I went to training camp, I was probably the 6th or 7th middle linebacker that they had then, and I just worked my way actually on special teams. And which was amazing about the special teams is I didn't play any special teams except I think I was on a punt team, and I was the fullback, the back guy right before the punter in college.
Protector, yeah.
Yeah, protection guy. That was and we had a fake punt, and they would snap it to me, and I would run a little bit. But anyway, so just to get there and to get all those chances, and back then, you can block below, you can block high, low, you can cut, you can do anything, and they put me on basically the first time I was just on one special team, and I went to Coach Campbell back then. Whitey Campbell was the special teams coach, and I said, Coach, the only way for me to make this team is to get on all the special teams and let them show that I can do it or I can't. That's the only way. So he put me on every one of them, and by God, that's how I made the team.
That's a great story. A lot of people too, Russ, understand that they don't know that you played baseball also at Nickel State, and I think in fact you followed me by playing third base, but I screwed up third base so bad that you couldn't correct it or something like that.
Yeah, that was great.
Did you play for TC
I did. He played. He was my defensive coordinator for football, and then he was the head baseball coach.
That's exactly right. You followed Ray Diddy. I never forget that. Russ, right. I'm gonna throw a couple of things out there, and you pick one of these things. Just if you in power, you can control this. The NIL transfer portal, college playoffs, defensive schemes nowadays, paying players, the kickoff rule in the NFL, which I just hate it. Soft tissue injuries. Give me something. Take one of those topics and let's talk about it a little bit.
The kickoff rule in the NFL got me because, again, I go back to myself as that's how I made team. I don't know if I would make the team that way now these days, and some people are kicking them in the end zone and not having any returns. Some people are kicking it high and trying to get a return to get them before they get to the 25 or the 30. But the kickoff rule is I know it's because of injuries. I understand that completely. But football is a violent sport to start with, okay? And I just hate that rule. When they line up that way, I kind of figure myself, I said, God, I got to wait for the guy catching it for me to go. And that's crazy. And then one other thing, the NIL rule, hey, if they want to do it one time, they have some things that don't work out for you, okay? We understand that. It's just a lot of different things. Could be a family matter, could be anything. But this go every year, transfer 6 times, 5 times, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Exactly. Russ, when you and I played, the helmets were just a little suspension helmets, if you recall that.
Yes, sir.
But at least they protected you. And we all got in our life dinged. I mean, we just call it getting dinged. You shook it off. You went back in the ball game. Were you ever dinged?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, I dinged more people than I was, but I was definitely a couple of times. I can remember in college for sure that I was, and also in high school. But that's it's for the better. Don't get me wrong. It's for the safety of the kids, most definitely. But it's a violent sport to start with.
Well, what I don't understand though are the rules themselves. And for instance, you played linebacker, and I was a high school linebacker myself. With a guy crossing the middle, it's a shallow cross route, but the tight end crossing or the back crossing, the receiver crossing, he catches the pass, and here you're standing there, and he's coming right to you. Right. And I mean, what are you supposed to do as a linebacker? In terms of that, if he lowers his head, you cannot control where he's going to put his head down or not, but you get called for targeting.
I was always taught at the crown of my helmet, going for the guy's chin. I mean, that's how I never did get faked out or anything of that way. Is that what you aim for? That way you do that. These days, all the guy got to do is duck his head one little second, and you get called for targeting, and then you're out of the game. If I would have got kicked, I don't know how many times I would have got kicked out of the game in my time, but golly, it's just tough. It's really tough. I feel sorry for the guys that get kicked out of the game.
And you see that. You see the remorse on their face because they're not trying to do that.
No.
And Russ, I threw this out to a bunch of coaches that were at the Manning camp, and there were bunch of guys. We had this little forum, and I threw this out. I think anytime a defender is trying to put his arms into the tackle, as long as he doesn't lead with the crown of his helmet and launch, right. And I understand. Yeah. I get that. But if I'm trying to put my arms into the tackle, I'm not trying to hurt you, even though we might have helmet contact. But what's really disturbing to me, you have helmet contact in the line of scrimmage every snap.
Yes.
I don't get it. And those helmets that we're wearing nowadays, but nobody wants to see someone die, but I haven't seen anyone die from a concussion. You know what I mean? They get dinged, they come back, and it's okay. And maybe multiple concussions, maybe did give up football, something like that.
I bet you if you go back and record the missed tackles in a game, it has a lot to do with it because the guys don't know. A lot of them just throwing their shoulders. They ain't even trying to wrap up.
Exactly. And you ask the players, do you want to be tackled high or tackled low? They would say, I want you to tackle me high. Don't take my legs.
Absolutely.
Because in fact, I got hurt myself a year when you talked about it, block and below the waist. And on the kickoff team, Destrehan used the cross block, and I know I got a torn meniscus right now because they can block below the waist back then. Yeah. And that's a good rule that they took that out.
Absolutely.
That's a great rule. Rusty, the college playoff thing that's coming up. Do you have an opinion on that? Because I think the other association, Nickel State and Coach your brother Tim, he talked about that a lot. That I liked what their format was a lot better than this 12-team thing.
Yeah, that's it's all about and who you play. You going by records or you going by who you're playing? It's absolutely. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't think it's going to stay this way, but it's crazy as can be right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know what do you do as a program too, Rusty? Okay, let's take LSU or Tulane here. Can Tulane afford 105 scholarships that's coming down the pipe? Can they afford that? They got an 85 now. Can that school at 85,000 per kid? Can they afford 105,000?
No,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah. Or what's going to happen with the Nickel State? Baseball is going to get 34. How are they going to finance that?
They couldn't. Yeah, that's crazy. They couldn't finance when it was what 25 at some point, 26, and right. Now they're getting that. That's correct.
Yeah, I don't know, but I still see a lot of things. You mentioned something we talked before the show just when it started about the soft tissue injury, and I talked to Coach Selfo. I went and watched his practice one day, and I said, Coach, what's your take on the soft tissue stuff? I said, this is getting to be ridiculous, especially right now. You see the Pelicans, Zion, they can't get him on the floor, whatever it is. You would think that, and he said, well, their team works out 6 days a week at Salvation. They work out 6 days a week. And prior to that time that I was there, he said, we had not had one pulled muscle, groin or hamstring muscle. He said, because we work out 6 days a week. He thought that a lot of it to do exactly what you had said earlier, that they don't do a lot during the off season. I know they all have gurus and training experts and stuff like that. And they might even have an agent that tells them when to go work out. But you can't make me believe all these guys are just coming up with these injuries because they're softer. What has happened to the bigger, faster, the syndrome that everybody says that the athletes are nowadays?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, and you got some of them that got a little tweak and they don't want to go out there and maybe don't perform 100% because that's going to be against them and they want a big signing bonus or the next their contract's coming up. I know the Saints had one like that. He no longer play for them, but he didn't want to go out there and get beat just because he wasn't 100%.
Yep, exactly. Russ, one thing we haven't talked too much on this show about, but I think agents in themselves are really ruining the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think they're really demanding in some aspects, they're demanding and telling their clients, Coach, I know all coaches have agents too, they have to nowadays, but they're telling some of these clients, hey, you get a better contract if you do this. I know the Players Association are telling these players, hey, ask for $10 million, because if you get $10 million, the next guy behind you is going to get 11, and they're going to start leapfrogging you, and you make it better for everybody. But that's really, really driving this market way out of sight. 100%,
Coach. 100% right. They're definitely doing it, and it's just going and you outbid the other one, and it just where's it going to end up? Who knows?
Well, Coach, I tell you, you were one of the best football players ever come out of River Parishes. People don't remember that, but watching you playing against you all those years, and you were, if there was anybody that was unblockable, it was you. In terms of, and as a linebacker, the ideal position. I remember Coach Calmes telling me that they created a defense at Nickel State just for you. And I went back over there and watched practices, and he put on a little clinic. He said they created one which was called a shade front at that time, just to free you up so you can run to the ball and make plays. And you did I don't know if you knew that or not, but
yes, sir. Yeah.
But he did a phenomenal job of telling you that, coming up with this scheme, and you were just one of the better players. It's a shame that the good Lord, like both of us, gravity got both of us, and you weren't 6'4" or something like that. But,
Coach, if I was 6'4", I could have been awkward and blocked, and everybody got to my knees, and so I just take it for what I was, and just went from that way too. But again, I was fortunate with Coach Calmes talking about at Nichols, is I had two big old defensive tackles at 6'5" and 250, 260 at that time was really big, and I hid behind them, and all of a sudden they couldn't find me, and then I made the tackle. So I appreciate those guys taking on the blocks for me.
Yeah, finally, Rusty, who do you play for? Who's the head football coach at Nichols when you were head football coach?
Coach Bill Clements.
Bill, okay. Bill Clements was head football coach. I remember that.
Yes.
They were a fine man.
A great individual, better individual than a coach for sure. He was a good coach, but he was definitely a great. He's a Tulane product. He played at Tulane.
Yep, soft-spoken.
Oh, yes.
Just nice and easy. Should have been a priest, you know.
Yeah,
he should have been one of those guys, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was Coach Clements, and you couldn't find a finer gentleman than he was.
Amen. And Rusty, before we go, tell us about your family. How things going? Tell us about your family.
Family's going. I'm a grandpa. Naturally, as you can see, my age, and I have 2 little girls. I got a little grandson now. That's about how old is he, Mom? About 3 months, and then I got another grandson coming on in March, and they're my life. I can't wait to see them every day, every other day. But it's always good, Coach, because I can give them back to their parents. You know.
Amen. You
know that, right?
What about Mama? Tell me about Mama. What's she doing? She's
my wife is still at it. She's an RN, but she teaches CPR on the side right now, and she's with those babies every day. They calling her, and she's a great grandmother, and definitely enjoying those kids for sure. Couldn't have a better one. She supported me. She's a Southeastern graduate. That's in high school, but Southeastern graduate. While I was at Nichols, she was at Southeastern. That didn't work out too good, Coach.
Yeah, I understand that. Look, she was a great Christian lady. She worked, I remember, with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes back then. So please tell them hello. And Rusty, y'all have a great Thanksgiving. And eat some dead turkey, some cheap wine for me, will you?
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be on with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Stay in touch, please. Okay?
All right, Coach.
Good night.
Good night.
We would like to thank Gulf Coast Sponsors for being a sponsor of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
We would like to thank Riverlands Insurance for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. And in the Let's Be Frank segment, Coach, tonight you're going to discuss why have conference championships.
You know, let me first of all say this, and I heard Coach Nick Saban say this. You know, he said he took the FCC, for instance. He said he doesn't think it's really fair the way that things work out, because you could have a 3 or 4 team that should be able to play for a championship because of the toughness of the schedule in the SEC. And so the way things work right now, and I think if you remember, the Ole Miss coach gets on the air just prior to last week's game, and he made the comment. He said, you know, if the team that gets to the conference championship is actually being punished, because sometimes you'd rather just be ranked and play. And not have to play for the conference championship, because you actually risk the chance of getting more kids hurt, and actually risk the chance of maybe hurting your ranking. The loser of that could be out completely. The loser of that conference championship game could be completely out of the playoffs. Exactly. I think that what should happen is some type of power ranking system. Let me go back in 2012. LSU's already they got to play for a conference championship. They played the conference championship and they beat Georgia. They win. They go to the national final to play against Alabama, who got a bid, but Alabama didn't have a conference championship to play. They had a whole week to sit there, watch LSU play in the conference championship game. They played LSU in the Superdome, and they beat LSU for the national championship. That was totally unfair to LSU. That's when Les Miles was the coach. Totally unfair. In this particular scenario, what I'm saying is that they need to do away with the conference championships and just go with a power ranking system like high school do in Louisiana. We have a great system in Louisiana. You get rewarded for a tough schedule on the way that the team, you get so many points for a win, and you get the other team's wins depending upon how many teams how many games that they have won during the year, and you add that up and divide that up. If everybody plays 12 games, it becomes perfectly equal to everybody, and you get a better champion. So let's just rank them according to their power ranking, just like they do it in high school in Louisiana. And I think it's a phenomenal system, and there's no reason why you can't do that. And you still can include the bowls along the way with all that. I don't understand. Plus, I'd like to really see that expand to 16 team, because, okay, if you don't make the 16 team, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs, and you're not going to win it anyway if you're that far down with a power ranking. But if I had a power ranking that's strong enough, I played in the SEC, I might have lost 4 ball games, but my power ranking might be good enough that I can win it. I've seen in high school teams lose 5 games and win the state championship after losing 5 legitimate games because of the toughness of their schedule. So don't tell me it can't be done. I think it's silly that they have a conference championship game with a chance of losing it and getting bumped out of it, rather than the winner is the only one that gets rewarded for that, and that puts another loss on your schedule. And if you're playing a conference championship game, you're a pretty good football team to begin with. So I think Nick Saban is right about the ranking things. I think he's right about the toughness of schedules, and because you do have some. There's no way in the world Boise State played the schedule of a LSU. There's no way in the world that any other teams that are ranked up there that not played tough schedules. I mean, even the ACC, that just very limited how many good teams there are. You know, the Big 12. So the bottom line is, let's get to a real power ranking system. Let's do away with these conference championships that can actually hurt a contender. You're going to see that because there are a bunch of conference championships next week. You're going to see a bunch of teams lose their ranking because of that.
Coach, I've been saying that sentiment for a while. Again, there should be no team sitting at home during conference championship weekend, sitting on a beanbag chair, eating Doritos and watching the game and have a greater benefit than a 10-2 team that just so happens to be in that game and loses. But also what I love about what you're talking about is I agree with the 16-team sentiment. You eliminate the power of bye weeks, because, again, the committee has members of this committee who are athletic directors, and we can say that they can be unbiased all they want, but when your money and your situation, your circumstances on the line, you are going to have a natural inclination to promote your teams.
Well, the thing that I mentioned about what happened to LSU was a classic example. LSU wins the game handily against Alabama. Alabama gets a rematch. They get the benefit of the doubt by sitting at home when LSU is playing in the conference championship game. Right. With another chance to get injured. And then the rematch, LSU was completely flat, and it happened right there in the Superdome. But Alabama walks away with the national championship trophy sitting at home. I thought that was totally, totally unfair.
Also, Coach, one thing that nobody's really bringing up, two teams could play each other 3 times in the current format. You could play in the regular season, in the conference championship, and you can play in the playoffs. I mean, does anybody really want to see 2 teams play 3 times over the course of one football season? I know I don't.
Exactly right. Right.
Let's go ahead and take a look at Blitz the Ball Coach segment, where, Coach, tonight you're going to tell us what is an option route.
Okay, guys, you hear this thing on the commentators talk about it. Some of these football gurus, where they run an option route. If I'm a lady that doesn't understand football, it doesn't have to be a lady or a guy that really never played football before. And a lot of football players, the option routes have not been around a long, long time. And some people run them, some people don't. I know a lot of teams that don't run option routes because, one, they have to have a guy that really believes in them, knows how to coach him. And 2, they have to have the players to be able to do that. In my high school years, In college, we were a big option team when I was at Tulane. But in my high school years, there were only some players that I could run option routes with. Some didn't understand it. And you have to have a player that's pretty savvy. He doesn't have to be the fastest, but he should have a little savvy because there's a lot of parameters with it. Well, anyway, what the option route is, and I'll get my graphic again, like I like to do. And just normally a player. Option, whatever you want to call it. The tight end is normally designated as the Y. The split end is called the X, and the Z receiver is normally a flanker. Okay, so he'll go down the field, and he outside releases, and he'll go to a spot of 6 to 8 yards deep. He'll either break inside or outside, depending upon the leverage of the defender. If a defender engages him at the 6-yard mark, he can bang off him and run outside. If he wants to, if he puts a little shake on him and the head nod, he can go inside. And that also outside of the option route, there'll always be another complementary route outside the option. It could be either a streak or 9-ball, or it could be maybe a dig, which is known as the in route, and it could be the back flare. And as you see the top drawing I have, the back flaring on that side, the flare means that you can see this back right here. He's just going to the sideline. So the quarterback really keys the flat defender. And so rather than get into exactly who's the flat defender, he just looks at him, basically say, okay, you get open. He's just trying to say, you go get open. Over here in the bottom of the screen, you're going to see a different deal. This is the A back right here, or the tailback coming out of the backfield, and he has the same parameter. Can you run a double option? Yes, you can. And some people do that. So he has a chance to break out, break in. Darren Sproles is really good at it. Kamara does it on occasion. It's really hard because if you match him up with a linebacker, it's really tough. And the quarterback has eyes for him. Now, on top of this, if this was Kamara right here, you make him run a 6 to 8 yard route. You break inside or outside, and the receiver on the outside will run something either a streak, or maybe run an in route coming inside like this or something like that. And the quarterback has what is known as a high-low read or something like that. So all of these things, these are what we call an option route, basically meaning a tight end option to break left, break right, or sometimes some people put the parameter you can go straight, and depending upon what they give you. But sometimes they miscommunicate. But this is stuff that normally go get a first down. It's normally thrown on first down or third down when you need 3rd and 5 or something like that. This is good stuff right here. And the team that run it right, now this takes a lot of work. I want you to understand this. When I was at Tulane, we practiced this one route 10 minutes every day, just one route with all the parameters that involve with it. So, but the quarterback has to be on the same page. So basically, this was the option route. I did not draw one up for a wide receiver, but he has a similar thing. So basically, if a guy's inside of him, he breaks out. If the guy's outside of him, he breaks in. If both the defenders part, he just sits down right there and shows his numbers. Basically, when you show your numbers to the quarterback, that tells him that you're sitting down. If you don't see the numbers of a running back, that means he's running. Very simple. Very simple. So the body language of that guy tells the quarterback whether he's running or sitting down. But that's some of the things about what an option route is. But it's very hard to defend this route.
All right, thank you, Coach. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our last segment for Lock of the Week, which is At the Water Cooler. And tonight you're going to discuss, should the Saints consider retaining Coach Darren Rizzi as head coach?
Okay, the question I asked, based on 2 games, this is only based on 2 games, okay? Let's look at some of the factors, okay? One, is he the best special teams coach the Saints in the NFL? And the answer to that, I think, is yes. If not, he's very, very close to it. I guarantee he's in the top 5, okay? If he doesn't get the job, do you retain a guy like him to be your special team guy? If he doesn't get the job, the answer to that, I would say yes. Okay, he teaches all aspects of the game. He's got some defensive players. He's got some offensive players on both sides of the ball. He uses offensive linemen for PAT field goal. And does he respond to the whole team? The answer to that is yes. So when did you start looking for a replacement? And who's out there? Who's out there that you think is such a sexy appeal? Who's out there? So what am I saying? I heard that several of the sports writers write in the paper the other day, they should get a clean slate. They get away from Peyton's disciples or anybody, just get a clean slate. They don't realize that there's no clean slates out there. These guys go from one team to the other. Who knows who's going to pop up from here? Pete Carmichael he bounces around already with Denver. Who knows that he won't one day be back as what to say? Who's to say that? Look what's happening. The Grable's name comes up. There are a lot of guys that bounce around the league that've been through the Saints organization already. So I don't understand what they're talking about, a clean slate. NFL is a fraternity. Those guys, okay, if somebody gets fired, somebody else is going to pick up this guy. They know one another. They got friends. They work with one another. So guys that they trust. Coaches don't hire off of resumes, people. Coaches don't do that. Coaches hire people that they know and they can trust. They don't look at somebody's resume that they don't know, but this guy looks good. That doesn't happen in the coaching profession. And it never did, and it never will. They're going to coach guys that they know, the guys they can trust. This guy deserves a shot. I think he deserves a shot because who's out there that can be better? And so now, take into consideration, he already knows the players. A new regime, they're coming in. They have to reevaluate their players. They have to understand, okay, what do we need from here? He knows what they need for next year. He knows what the draft is going to encompass. So he already knows this. So, and I love his energy. I love his energy, what he brings to the table. He might not win another game. I don't know that. But I know I love his energy. In fact, and I think he understands the weaknesses of his team. He's already proven that he's made a couple moves and understand what's going on with that. And will there be some guys that he will force to retire? I think so. But I'm saying for my money, I'm saying let's stick with this guy and let's give him a chance, because just because they didn't win a few ball games, it was not his fault. I mean, it becomes a staff thing, and a lot of this goes back to the players. Someone told me this a long time ago. Old NFL coach told me this. He said, in the NFL, all you really do, if you want to win, you have to manage egos. You have to manage the egos, and that's the most important. So it looks like this guy is able to do that.
Coach, do you think there's a certain win threshold where if he hits, then the discussion kind of becomes null and void and you have to hire him? Like, what number do you think that would be for his situation?
That's a good question. I don't know if you give it a number. I think you look at the result in terms of, were they competitive in the game? If they get blown out like it happened at Tampa Bay, if they get blown out, something like that. I mean, and they look sloppy doing it, throwing picks or whatever, and giving up some big explosive plays. Because I think I heard somebody said that they've given up more explosive plays than anybody in the league on defense. Well, that's something he has to address. He said there's something rotten in Holland, whether it's the defensive calls or it's the players or whatever it is. I don't know if you put a number on it, Jason, but as a fan, and our wives know that. Our wives say, "Hey, this is a competitive game. They're in it to the end, and they're competing." You can tell the difference. Or are they sloppy? Or they can't catch up in the fourth quarter, and everybody's gone. So I think the bottom line is, I don't know, but we certainly like to see him. Naturally, if he gets in the playoff conversation, you'd have to say, "Hey, we got to give this guy a chance." But you certainly like to see him win at least half the games that are remaining.
All right, Coach, and we'll go ahead and move on to our final segment, which is going to be the lock of the week. Coach, where are you putting your money this week?
I am going to take Auburn in the points. I think Auburn-Alabama game, that's the Iron Bowl. It's always been a competitive game. Auburn coming off a big win in overtime last week I might add that was quite interesting because we have not seen many cases where the 2-point play becomes the overtime the overtime tiebreaker. So that was really interesting to see that last week.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it was a great ball game to watch at the end there. I'm going to go kind of against what's been your judgment the entire year, though. I'm going to go South Carolina plus 2.5. They are on the road at Clemson. South Carolina is 8-3 against us with the spread this season. Clemson comes in at 5 and they have 5 wins on the season when it comes with the point spread. So I think South Carolina is a hair away from being a 9-2 team. Really outplayed LSU in that ball game and had a few things go against them. I really like this Gamecocks ball club, and the job that Coach Beamer has done needs to be commended, and it can't be overstated.
I agree.
All right, so let's go ahead and give you guys the socials before we go on and get out of here. So you can follow us on Facebook at the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. You can follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at the LBF Podcast. Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, so guys, it's just a final thought. Number one, I have one of my former players, Evan Roussel, will be our guest speaker next week. Evan is an all-conference player for Nicholls State for 3 years now, hopefully 4 years in a row as a center. He played for me at St. Charles Catholic, and looking forward to hearing from him and see what his future's like. But also want to express my condolences on behalf of Jason, the show, and Justin, and then Gabriel, for Coach John Talley. Coach John Talley, who coached at St. Charles Catholic for the last 5.5 years. He was on my staff for 2 years, and he was recommended by his good friend Jason Brown to come to us. He passed away Friday night after the football game with St. Charles, and they played it at Madison Prep. He passed away, and he's survived by his wife Lydia and his son Trey. So our condolences go out to him. A fine man, just a gentleman, is a true professional. The profession himself was really going to miss him. He coached track. He did a lot of the breakdowns on film. It was just a thorough coach. The St. Charles community really going to miss him. A fine man, fine mentor, and and we know that the good Lord has a place for him in heaven, and we'll see him again one day. So final blessing to Coach Talley and his family.
Thank you, Coach. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and the St. Charles community. So that'll do it for our show. I want to thank our producer, Gabe Garza. Thanks for alongside me, Frank Monica. I am Jason Duhe. And remember, let's lay ball and live a good time, children.